Imagine living in a world where a single mistake could destroy everything. A world where two superpowers built thousands of nuclear weapons. Where one wrong move, a single misunderstanding, or even a single angry phone call could release enough nuclear fire to wipe out cities in seconds. For 45 years, the world lived with that fear. This was the Cold War, a global rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union. A rivalry that shaped politics, technology, culture, and war. A rivalry that never turned into a direct battle, but still cost millions of lives. In our previous video, we explored the Russian Revolution and the rise of communism. That revolution changed Russia and created the Soviet Union. It also created the powerful ideology that would clash with the United States after World War II. The Cold War can only be understood if we understand the world that communism and capitalism created. So in this documentary, we will explain the Cold War in simple language. We will show the goals and mistakes of both sides. We will explore the moments when the world came close to nuclear disaster. And we will understand how this long conflict shaped the 21st century. Now, let us travel back to 1945, when the world was rebuilding after the most destructive war in history. World War II ended in 1945. Europe was destroyed. Japan had been bombed heavily. Millions were dead. Many nations were weak. But two countries rose above the rest. The United States became a global superpower. Its economy was strong. The cities were not damaged by war. It had a powerful military. And it had a new weapon that changed everything. The atomic bomb. The Soviet Union also emerged powerful, but in a different way. It had suffered incredible losses. Almost 27 million Soviet citizens died. Many cities were destroyed. But the Red Army had captured Berlin. The Soviets had defeated Nazi Germany. That victory gave them power and influence across Eastern Europe. When the war ended, the alliance between the USA and USSR broke apart. They had worked together only because they had a common enemy. Once Hitler was defeated, their differences became clear. The USA believed in capitalism, private business, individual freedom, and elections. The Soviet Union believed in communism, state control of business, one-party rule, and the idea that capitalism created inequality. Each side believed it was right. Each side believed the other was dangerous. And this belief created the Cold War. After the war, the Soviet Union took control of Eastern Europe. Poland, East Germany, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, and Czechoslovakia all became communist states. Stalin said this was for protection. The USSR had been invaded from the West several times in its history. Stalin wanted a buffer zone. But the United States and Western Europe saw it differently. They believed the Soviets were expanding their power. They believed communism might spread across the entire continent. Winston Churchill described this division with a famous phrase. He said an iron curtain had fallen across Europe. On one side were countries aligned with the United States. On the other side were countries controlled by the Soviet Union. This division shaped world politics for the next 45 years. The United States created a policy called containment. The goal was to stop communism from spreading beyond Eastern Europe. One major tool was the Marshall Plan. In 1947, the USA offered billions of dollars to help rebuild Europe. Countries in Western Europe used this money to rebuild their economies. The Soviet Union rejected the money and forced its Eastern European allies to reject it too. The Marshall Plan helped Europe recover, but it also increased the divide between East and West. Berlin became the first major crisis of the Cold War. Germany had been divided into 4 occupation zones after the war. Berlin had also been divided, but the city was inside the Soviet-controlled zone. In 1948, the Western Allies formed West Germany. In response, the Soviet Union blocked all roads and railways into West Berlin. Their plan was simple. If the West could not supply the city, they would leave. The United States responded with a massive airlift. For almost a year, American and British planes delivered food, fuel, and supplies into the city. At one point, a plane landed every minute. Eventually, the Soviets ended the blockade. West Berlin survived. But this crisis showed how quickly the Cold War could turn into a real conflict. In 1949, the Soviet Union shocked the world by testing its first atomic bomb. The United States was no longer the only nuclear power. Fear increased. The USA built the hydrogen bomb. The USSR built one too. Both sides constructed thousands of nuclear weapons. Both sides built missiles that could reach each other in minutes. This created a situation known as mutually assured destruction. If one side launched a nuclear attack, the other side would respond with equal force. Both countries would be destroyed. As strange as it sounds, this fear prevented war. The leaders on both sides understood that a direct conflict would end civilization. The first major military conflict of the Cold War began in 1950. Korea had been divided into North and South after World War II. North Korea was communist and supported by the USSR and China. South Korea was anti-communist and supported by the USA. When North Korea invaded the South, the United States feared communist expansion. The United States and the United Nations sent troops. China entered the war on the side of the North. The war lasted 3 years. Millions of civilians died. Soldiers suffered in freezing temperatures. The fighting eventually stopped, but the border remained almost the same. The lesson was clear. The USA and USSR would not fight each other directly, but they would fight through other countries. These were called proxy wars. The Cold War would be full of them. In 1953, Joseph Stalin died. His rule had been harsh. Millions had suffered. After his death, a power struggle broke out. Nikita Khrushchev eventually became the new leader. Khrushchev surprised the world by criticizing Stalin. He said Stalin created a climate of fear. He promised to reform the Soviet Union. But Khrushchev also wanted to challenge the United States. He believed communism could compete successfully with capitalism. This competition moved into a new area: space. In 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first satellite in space. Americans were shocked. If the USSR could launch a satellite, maybe it could launch missiles with nuclear warheads. The USA responded by creating NASA and investing heavily in science and education. The Soviet Union sent the first human to space. The United States sent astronauts to the moon. The space race was part of the Cold War. Each achievement became proof that one system was better than the other. In 1962, the Cold War reached its most dangerous moment. The Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba. Cuba was very close to the United States. American leaders discovered the missiles and demanded their removal. President John F. Kennedy ordered a naval blockade. Soviet ships were on their way to Cuba. The world waited. People feared the worst. For 13 tense days, nuclear war seemed possible. Finally, a secret deal was made. The USSR removed its missiles from Cuba. The USA secretly agreed to remove missiles from Turkey and promised not to invade Cuba. The crisis ended, but it left a clear message. One mistake could have ended the world. Another major conflict of the Cold War was the Vietnam War. North Vietnam was communist. South Vietnam was supported by the USA. The United States believed that if Vietnam fell to communism, other countries in Asia would follow. This idea was known as the domino theory. The war became long and brutal. Millions of Vietnamese civilians were killed. American soldiers faced difficult conditions. Many Americans began to question the war. Protests grew larger. The war divided the United States. In 1975, the United States withdrew. North Vietnam won. Vietnam became a unified communist country. For the USA, this was a major failure. It showed that even a powerful nation could lose a war. By the 1970s, both the USA and USSR were tired of constant tension. The nuclear arms race was expensive. The possibility of war was always present. Both sides began to negotiate. They signed treaties that limited nuclear weapons. This period was called détente. Presidents Nixon and Carter met with Soviet leaders like Brezhnev. Diplomatic and economic relations improved. Tension decreased, but only for a short time. In 1979, tension rose again. The Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan to support a communist government. The United States saw this as aggression. The U.S. supported the Afghan Mujahideen against the Soviet Union through a covert program called Operation Cyclone, using Pakistan as a conduit for funding, weapons, and training. The war lasted 10 years. It drained Soviet money, caused heavy casualties. It became the Soviet Union's version of Vietnam. This war weakened the Soviet system. It also ended the era of détente. In 1981, Ronald Reagan became President of the United States. He believed the Soviet Union was dangerous and could not be trusted. He increased military spending. He placed nuclear missiles in Europe. His speeches criticized communism strongly. Reagan believed that pressure on the USSR would break it. He also believed that the U.S. economy was stronger and could outspend the Soviets. In many ways, he was right. The Soviet economy was struggling. Its factories were outdated. Its farms were inefficient. Its people waited in lines for basic products. Change was coming. In 1985, a new Soviet leader came to power. His name was Mikhail Gorbachev. He understood that the USSR could not continue as it was. Gorbachev introduced two major reforms. Glasnost meant openness and allowed more freedom of speech. Perestroika meant restructuring the economy. Gorbachev also worked to reduce tension with the United States. He met with Reagan several times. Both agreed to reduce nuclear weapons. These meetings helped improve relations. In 1989, communist governments across Eastern Europe collapsed. People wanted freedom and economic change. The Berlin Wall fell. Germany reunited. In 1991, the Soviet Union dissolved. 15 new countries emerged. The Cold War was over. The Cold War shaped the world. It influenced politics, technology, culture, and global alliances. It led to the creation of NATO and many other organizations. It caused wars in Korea, Vietnam, and Afghanistan. Pushed science forward through the space race. It created fear that nuclear weapons could end life at any moment. Both the United States and the Soviet Union made serious mistakes. Both supported dictators. Both interfered in other countries. Both used propaganda. Both harmed millions of people through proxy wars. But both also avoided direct nuclear war. And that may be the only reason humanity survived the 20th century. Even today, we still feel the effects. Tension between Russia and the West continues. Nuclear weapons still exist. Countries still debate capitalism, communism, and global power. History does not disappear. It stays with us. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you enjoyed learning about the Cold War, remember to like the video, comment, and subscribe. And if you missed our previous video about the Russian Revolution and the rise of communism, make sure to watch it next. That story connects directly to the origins of the Cold War.